Hey, what's up, y'all? D Amazing. I'm here to bring you a video, not really a review, but I'm going to talk about posing and show you guys some posing. I don't want to call them techniques, but things that I do to help me prep for a shot and how I get things done. And basically, I'm gonna yam around randomly, sorry, but hopefully you'll stick with me and we'll talk about stuff, I guess. But first and foremost, I brought a bunch of different figures from across the board to show that no matter what kind of figure it is, you can pretty much sort of pose it in any sort of cool way. So I have a lot of SHF. I have the synthetic human. I have a Mezco. I have a Revo. I got a Mafex Batman over there. I got a Marvel Legend, and basically a bunch of my friends or people who are getting into it. Constantly, what I do get emails about is people asking me how to help with posing, and this is the stuff that I personally think that I excel at because it's stuff that I like to do. The reviewing stuff is definitely not even a priority for me. It's me taking pictures. That's the stuff that I enjoy. So I definitely want to help people do that while, you know, simultaneously doing good things. So first and foremost, I want to start with the synthetic human. Now this is a 112 scale synthetic human. It's really nice. I reviewed it. But if you haven't seen it, that's fine. Basically, this is the one outside of the Revo. This is probably the most posable figure here because it can pose in a ton of different ways. It moves like an actual human if they were Olympian level, like stretching. So there's tons of things you can do. Now, a lot of the times, what I do when I see people posing stuff, a lot of the time, just anatomy is off. And what I mean by off is that it's kind of, how do I explain it? It's kind of like when people like do really weird running poses, right? So I always talk about that and that because that's one thing that's like a pet peeve of mine. So when I see people run, what happens is that they have people running like this. So, and this kind of bothers me because you can't. No one runs like this. No one runs with their both right and left side. Like this is how you'll look when you try to do that. You'll look like this. Like this is not running. This is you ready to fall and trip and collapse. And as you can see, I easily balance that. And this is something I want to talk about is with counterbalance. Like obviously this looks good to some people. Like this is how you're supposed to run. That's not true. When running, what I do is for a lot of photos, I picture myself doing stuff like, how would it look? Like, does it look like this? If you're going to run, this is more of you're running. You know, this is more on the lines of running. What you do is you look for counterbalance, you position it, and voila. So across the board, this is the more look that you'll get running. If you want to talk about strides and make it look more perfect, you obviously add the fine tuning there. And just like that, you've worked on your posing for running. The more you practice it, the more it's easy to do. And if you can't balance stuff, which is great, I understand it's not for everyone. Not everyone can balance. It takes a lot of patience, actually. You got to sit there, you got to play around with stuff. You got to make sure stuff doesn't fall. Like, this actually takes a ton of patience. And this is something I do when I work on photos. Because what happens is, like, now I can't balance it. So what happens is you find a way to counter the weight by fixing it upright and working on it. So eventually, it sits on its own. Like even now, and I think it's me. I think I can't balance it. But eventually, oh, there we go. So yeah. So eventually, you work on it to get to that point. Now, even with stuff like fighting and stuff like that, when you're doing certain poses, martial arts poses, a little bit more difficult. So I totally understand people not getting that one. If you've never taken a martial art, you don't know the proper posing. If you don't like look at references, you don't know the proper posing. Again, this is just me taking a random pose, but anatomy wise, it looks decent because what happens is if you practice enough or if you show off and like take pictures of yourself practicing, this is the kind of thing you expect. Then there's stuff like jumping and kicks, like side kicks. So just, these are things you want to practice on. So that's with synthetic human. Really easy because he's the most posable. Now, stuff like Marvel Legends, what happens is you kind of study your anatomy of your figure. You learn to rotate, things like that. And most of the time, I get so much excited for stuff is that I often forget to show people like this is the kind of stuff that I go through when I'm reviewing stuff. Like I'll like kind of play around with the articulation that I forget that I should probably look at the proper way to do it. I'm so used to looking at a figure and going, hey, you know, this is how I play with it. This is what I've learned. Like posing wise, like you see, Nova's flight pose. This is with one knee out. But obviously, since Nova's the human rocket, it's both legs laid flat because you want to show off the skill of the human rocket effect somehow. So you do it like this, or depending on who's drawing it at the time, like Ed McGuinness, you know, he looks like this. You know, there's tons of things you can do. So you want to learn the anatomy of your figure. You want to learn what you're doing with it. You want to learn what it could do. That way, when you're doing cool stuff, it looks right. Now, taking pictures of it is a different story. I'm going to get into that in a second. But like if you're posing stuff, you definitely want to be able to like to see, make sure it looks cool. So here's a cool example, right? I'm going to go to Venom. So with Venom, what happened was I already have him up like this, right? He's doing the webbing shot. Also, shout out to Tortuga Toys over on IG. He introduced me to his version of the webbing. I think it works perfectly for Black Suit Spider-Man and Venom. So I think that's really dope. So like, here's a prime example. I'm gonna take a photo, right? And I know people ask me about my camera and my camera settings. This is what I use. I use my Nikon D5100 and a manual 50mm lens. These are my settings. Wait. Oop, took a photo. But I can't even get it to work. But what happens is the lens cap is off. So let me see if I can actually get a photo going. So I snapped one real fast. This is what you get. So like the webbing is kind of in the way. So what you do is you find another angle to take it from, which I'm obviously doing right now. And I'm actually behind the camera doing it. Hopefully you heard the sound. But yeah, like hopefully different angles, you get different things, you test it around, you play with it. But angles play a huge part of their posing. As you can see, I did my best to hide the stand, which honestly I can't even always do myself. I just did my best to hide it. But what I did is I found a way to balance it, put it out, I posed it, and for the most part in the photo that I took, I had the stand for what I could do. And you know, that's not always impossible. Even now as I take it off the stand and I just want to, let's say I just wanted to play around and pose it or do whatever it is that I was going to do. You know, you even it out. I'm knocking everything down. Sorry, y'all. But yeah, like if you wanted to just do a picture of him like holding the weapon, running, flying, whatever it is, for Venom, it's a little different because it's not just natural anatomy. You're looking at how would a Spider-Man move if it had the shape of a giant muscular man. That's really what you look at when you look at Venom. It's how do you do posing for a guy who can do all the things Spider-Man can do but just looks crazy doing it. So that's what you kind of look for. You know, just as flexible, just as crazy, but just more bulky and muscular. So you can kind of get away with the crazy Spider-Man like poses for him. So that's what I believe for Venom. You can actually take that any way you want, but for Venom, that's the way I aim and look at him. And then you have like Super Sentai stuff. So Super Sentai, it's a mix of martial arts and weapons and heroic poses. So, you know, I'm not sure if anybody watched Kyoraja, but this is Koryu Gold. And what happens is, this is using older technology. So as SHF goes forward, this is an older figure now and it looks a little outdated. So what happens is, you got to find a way for him to look cool. So you pose it in a heroic way. And see, the angle makes it look good. You want to point the sword out a little more. Cool looking angle. But as you can see, there's gaps here and things like that. You'll just learn to do your best to kind of cover it up, like rotating the joint in and things like that. And voila. You got to make sure that your feet laid flat to even it out. And the reason why you lay the feet flat, in my opinion, I've learned that if you don't lay feet flat, they'll fall. But just like that, because the feet are flat, it helps keep the figure planted. Unless the figure got some weak legs and knees, he probably got crossed over, but that's a whole different issue. Other stuff that I like to do, like Mayfix Batman. Now the joints on the Mayfix, they're different like all the time. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But for some reason, the Mayfix Armored Batman is like my favorite one because I feel like they did the most solid job possible on this guy. And it's just, they decided, hey, we'll make this one the good one. So if you want to do something cool with this one, it's actually all there. Like, oop, popped the head off. I forgot about that joint. But he can't do the running pose that I wanted to do. But I'm going to do him like jumping forward, something like that. I wish I had my explosion effects out. You can kind of just see it. But you would aim for like, you do this. So I'm going to do him like jumping forward and do him have a Tamashi stage. And I think I didn't pop the head back on correctly. So bear with me. But like with this, the posing would be a little off because obviously, what is he looking at? What is he jumping at? What is he doing? That's what you have to question. So you kind of try to put it in perspective for people. You can't just have him jumping at stuff for the sake of jumping at stuff. Well, actually, you can, because it's Batman. He's probably jumping off a cliff or a building and things like that. But what it is that depending on the figure and what you're doing, how you're going about it, what you absolutely want to learn to do is make it look in character, even if it's something out of character. If they did it, you want to make it look as if I could see this person doing it. Like it just looks believable. That's what I aim for in photos. So what happens is if Batman wants to do a cool pose where he's being, crouchy Batman or he's about to defend himself against something, what you do is I'm going to move these stages back. And let's say he was going to fight Venom or whatever it was. Perspective-wise, I put Batman here. And let's say I put Venom here. What happens is, perspective-wise, I don't know if you guys can see it, you can kind of see as if you're looking over the shoulder of Venom, right? You want to make sure he's facing him, make sure the eye contact lines up to what he's looking at. So that way when he looks at Venom, you kind of see it. These are things that you can kind of just work on with your posing, with your technique. For me, I use strong lights and I use low ISO. And that's what pretty much allows me to kind of get away with stuff with perspective. And the 50mm allows me to do a lot. And I kind of just take advantage of that. The more I take photos, the more I learn. If you haven't already, I definitely recommend getting a body coon. Body coons, as far as helping you pose, I think they absolutely help. Because what happens is you can kind of work on your running, you can work on your balance, you can work on just overall anything. Like anything you're thinking about, you can kind of just work on with a body coon. It's all there. So like, I like Yu Yu Hakusho, so I could just picture Urameshi or doing a Urameshi pose. So what happens is, it's just like that, doing a spirit gun. Now the arm looks a little awkward, so I'm gonna change that, but just like that, And the reason why the leg is up because what I'm thinking is if the person was jumping back or jumping forward or even about to land, what you do is you kind of show off the rotation of the leg because it's kind of what you do in a superhero-like pose. Or at least, a hero-like pose. At least in my opinion. But yeah. You kind of want to rotate the joint, do this and do that. What I've also learned is that with soft goods like Mezco, it's a little difficult depending on the figure that you're doing it with. But Mezcos actually kind of give you a lot of bang for your buck in terms of range and articulation. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the photos I've taken for stuff, but it definitely allows you to get what you need done. So sometimes what you want to do is you kind of want to just hide the imperfections of how it would look. Like, obviously, like most of the Mezco stuff is anatomically correct. So you might want to shy away from the bulge areas. But some people want to not do that. Another thing is like sometimes the ankle pivot may be an issue. So you go as far as your ankle pivot allows, and you kind of just work with what you got. So now you have a crouching daredevil. Again, you can work with a perspective shot. You can actually do like you're leaping forward. There's tons of stuff that you can do. Hopefully this has helped people. I just kind of wanted to pretty much do that. Hopefully it's helping people with their posing. I actually don't know what to do for the end as far as photo wise. So I think maybe I'll just upload a few photos of everything, and then hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So I'm just gonna upload some older photos, maybe that hasn't been seen in a very long time, or some that I've done from some of these figures. But yeah, basically it's just kind of, this is me wanting to just help people with their posing and things like that. Like for instance, like kicking. So it's like, how would you kick? So if you were gonna do a side kick, if no matter how many times you look at pictures, most of the time the side kick you'll see is the one of, this. The instant classic of, so you kind of just focus on balance, you focus on the high kick maneuver and the anatomy. Hopefully it'll balance. Let me see if I can get it done. Let me see if I can work some magic. Maybe I can't. Actually, wait. There we go. And just like that, this is stuff you kind of just want to practice on. I know it gets frustrating. I know it's going to take some time. But I think the more you do it, the more it becomes secondhand nature to you. And hopefully, people will practice it, people will like it, and you will continue to do it. Because I know I'm just rambling on, but it took me years of practice, and it's a skill for me. It's not something that's a talent. So the more I play with figures, the more I got better at wanting to take photos of them. I've always wanted to take photos of them. I just got better as I practice daily, practice all the time. I may not pump out reviews, but I definitely do a ton of photos, and it's something that I very much enjoy. I just want to pass that joy along to you guys, and hopefully people enjoy, toy photography. It's something that I really do enjoy. I have a passion for it, and I want to share in that love, and hopefully you guys will too. In the meantime, guys, as usual, I really do hope that you're drinking water. Hope you're staying out of trouble. I hope you're doing good deeds. And for the most part, hope you guys don't have adversity in life. But I know it's going to come for you. And when it does, you face it head on, keep your head high, be good. Later, y'all.